Okay, so we've got another episode of Ask Woodford, and our guest that we have on, it's the second time you've been on here now, which is Ahmed, our performance nutritionist. So you're actually our number one performing episode, which is,
Surprising.
yeah.
Because I
And
remember rewatching that and I hate seeing myself on camera.
Oh,
So I was
yeah.
watching it and I'm like,
No.
but it's
And
positive, I
it sat
guess.
up there the whole time. Like, I think at one point it dropped to number 2 and Jamie Smith went up to number 1, and now you're still back most listened to episode on Spotify, that is, I'm pretty sure. So, yeah, I think, was it you, Woody, and Dirk?
Dirks, yeah.
Yeah. I feel like there was heaps of good information in that.
Yeah, there was a lot. Oh, we covered a lot in that. I think it was only like 50-minute talk. And
Yeah.
there was so much that we covered, which was really
Which
good.
is good. So for anyone that maybe hasn't listened to that episode, do you want to just sort of let them know like what you do, where you're at, and I suppose even what you're doing now? Because when you did that podcast episode, things have probably changed a bit for you.
Yeah, because that we did that, I think, at the end of 2023, I think it might have been.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So lots changed. So I am a clinical nutritionist and performance nutritionist. I deal a lot with metabolic health and helping people to improve their energy and lose weight and just really get back to quality of life. But I do more from the perspective of trying to change people's habits, their dietary habits, and doing that through proper education. Because we were speaking about this last night at dinner, there's just an abundance of half truths on social media in the nutrition realm. Now, I'm not going to lay claim to the fact that I know everything,
For sure.
but from what I do know and what I've researched and studied long hours on, a lot of that is just garbage and it's seriously affecting people's health. So I feel like I'm kind of on a mission to just kind of right the ship
Yeah.
and just really giving, clients and people that want to work with me just really profound information in a simple format that they can then go and apply into their daily life without the need of booking in a session all the time with me and stuff like that. Teaching them to kind of have habits so they can be independent,
Yeah.
with their health. And also the last year and a half, I've been doing a lot of teaching as well, which has definitely helped.
Yeah. I was gonna say, how are you finding that?
Love it.
That's good.
It's the best. I don't do school teaching. I do I teach the Cert 3 and 4 in fitness.
Yes.
So dealing a lot with adults.
Yeah.
That's been phenomenal. It's been so good. When I first started, I was so nervous and
Yeah, I
scared.
bet.
I remember the first day I taught, I remember about 40 minutes in, I sent the students out on a break and I quickly called my wife and I told her I'm quitting. I can't do this because I was just so nervous. I was
Did you have
stuttering.
a moment too where you're like, I don't know what just happened in the last 40 minutes?
I was
What just came
sweating.
out of my mouth?
And I mean, I have a lisp and I stutter sometimes when I get very excited about something I'm passionate about, but that was amped up. And I remember I felt like all 20 students looking at me like,
That's
who
so
is this guy? And
good.
then she calmed me down and then I went back and then ever since then it's just been, so much, it's been a lot better.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, but it's been really good. It's been really good. Like I love teaching. So I do that during the day pretty much. And
Yeah.
then I have my business where it runs predominantly online.
Yeah.
And yeah,
It fills in the gaps.
Yeah. Fills in the gaps.
Because you also too, actually before I say that, back to like the online space and I suppose the information that's getting put out there, I feel like I could, like you saying, oh, you're like one of the goals is to like really simplify it and so that people can understand it better.
Yeah.
I feel like you've like hit the nail on the head because even for me, from my own training and my own like lifestyle, diet, all that kind of stuff, and I've had this conversation with my coach that programs for me, nutrition seems so confusing. Like one person's saying this, one person's saying something else. Or, just track your calories, get in a deficit and you'll lose weight and X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And I personally get really frustrated by it and almost like angry because I can sit there and see, and even I've done stuff for myself where I'm like, but that's not the case for every single person. Like it's not a copy paste model across every single person. So I feel like I get really annoyed by it, and probably because I've done that, track the calories, like, and I eat like very whole foods, pretty clean. Like I'd probably say I have like a 80-20 diet of like clean food. And the 20% might just be because I'm going out for dinner on a weekend and I'll enjoy what I want.
Yeah.
So, and I'm like, yeah, but I eat the calories, I eat really clean, but, like, nothing's shifting. So
Yeah.
I get, like, really annoyed, and maybe more so from when I see other females just being like, "Oh, yeah, I did X, Y, and Z, and now I've dropped, like, 5 kilos, like, how good's this?" I'm like, "That's it doesn't work like that, though."
Not for
There's
everyone.
so many elements to it.
Yeah, and the human body is so complex. It's
Yes.
so simple yet so complex, right?
Yeah. Is it because we overcomplicate it? Or
I
do you
think there's a
reckon?
big element of
Yeah.
that. So I came across this saying recently watching another podcast, but it applies perfectly to nutrition. And I feel like with nutrition now, we've lost the tree for the forest. Sorry, we've lost the forest for the
The
tree, if that
tree.
makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
So we look at nutrition now, and this is prevalent across all social media platforms where everyone now is talking about individual nutrients and all these, micronutrients and antioxidants and all this being a superfood. But it's like we're not zooming out. We're looking at genes now, and it's like, but hold on,
Mm,
if that person's life is shit, it doesn't matter what
what they're
supplement or what
eating.
nutrient or what genetic coding they've got. If their life and their environment is shit, nothing is really going to work in the long term anyway. You might, experience short term success, but it's not going to last in the long term because you're not looking at the overall picture. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? You're
yeah.
looking at, again, to go back to, losing the forest for the tree. We're looking at individual branches of individual trees amongst a massive forest.
Yeah, got
And the
you.
human body is like a forest. It's all those trees working together to keep us alive. That's
Yeah.
that's the whole goal of the body. It's to keep us alive, to keep us
Correct.
surviving. So when we start trying to control everything that the body does, the way I explain it is the whole calorie counting mantra is very derogatory and condescending to the body. Because
Mm.
essentially what you're telling your body is, hey, as complex and as amazing as this human body is, I know better than you, and I'm going to drip feed you certain amounts of foods, good or bad, but certain amounts of food,
Mm.
and you're going to elicit this response, which is weight loss or weight gain. That's pretty
Yeah.
much what we're saying to our body.
And because, like, what is, because I know, like, I mean, I could be wrong actually, but for a lot of people, I would assume in the fitness industry that might give nutrition advice because they're not qualified in that area, is that they're probably just putting the height, the age, the weight into a calorie calculator and then it spits out
Yeah.
automatically, which is generic.
Yeah. So what you're doing is, sorry to interrupt, is
No.
you're reducing the human body to a machine.
Yeah.
The human body is not a machine.
No.
It is the furthest thing away from a machine.
And, like, that's the thing too, that if someone like, for someone oh, sorry, for that's not always gonna work for everyone. So it's sort of like you're literally just giving this generic,
Yeah.
like, cut and paste model. But if someone was like, "Oh, yeah, but if I tracked my calories one day and it turns out because now I'm deciding, oh, I really want to focus on my nutrition, but turns out, oh, actually, I only consume like 1,200 calories. My body, like, I seem to be all right.
Mhm.
And my body's probably adapted to that. And then now you're going to tell me to eat like 1,900.
Yeah.
And then you're telling me that I should still be losing weight. It's like, wait a sec, what?
And that's what, like, it's so nuanced, the human body. To sit there and just use a simple equation.
Yeah.
Like, the most accurate way to determine your basal metabolic rate is to do, I think, a muscle biopsy,
Yeah,
right? A
right.
very invasive procedure. Who's doing that?
No.
No, it's very expensive to do as well. So most of these people are using a general formula. But again, a general formula will work for a car. If you want to find out how fast or how far a car will travel at a certain speed in a certain time,
Mm,
you can do that because it's a machine. But you can't do that with the human body. There are so many different things that affect the inner workings of the human body,
yeah.
and it's going to be different for everyone else.
Yeah.
And that's the issue, is that, but because in the age of social media, as
Mm,
long as you look the part and you can talk the talk, people will buy your products. And most of my clients have been people that have fallen victim to these social media influencers. I hate using that word,
no,
but
but
these
it's
social
true.
media personalities that have
Yeah.
come out with this, if it fits your macros or these calorie deficits, and they've been on the negative side of that. And I mean, some of the stories that I could share with you about some clients that I've
Oh,
had.
really?
Yeah, because when you're messing around with the biochemistry of the body in a negative way, it seldom turns out good. It's always going to go bad. Maybe not initially. Some people, it happens automatically straight away,
Yeah.
but for other people, it can take months, it can take years.
Yeah, right.
And yeah, you get some like
Yeah, like, I feel like give me an example, if you can.
yeah,
Like,
I will.
obviously, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So this example I use, there's two. There's one female, one male.
Yeah,
And there was
perfect.
this female client of my mother of four, and she had gained excess amount of weight in a short period of time. And as women do, she felt very, very insecure about herself.
For sure.
So what did she do? She jumped on social media, saw this personal trainer that was a one-stop shop,
Mhm.
unqualified, but was a one-stop shop, had I think it was a 6 or an 8 week program, where it was dieting and nutrition, training like 6 days a week. And the aim was, I think, lose like, I think 2 kilos a week or something like that. I can't remember what the promise was,
Yeah.
but it was a diet plan, which consisted of a strict calorie deficit plus heavy training for like 6 days a week.
Yeah.
So again, when we're vulnerable, we make decisions that we're not proud of. So she ended up signing up with this client, with this trainer, completed a 6 week program, and was burnt out, putting it nicely.
Oh, yeah, I
She
can
was
imagine.
exhausted,
Yeah, because she's literally
gained
gone.
weight. She didn't lose the weight, right?
Y
She was miserable, and she was actually suicidal. Yeah.
Holy
So
shit.
there was one story that broke me where in the initial consultation, I was, just allowing her to speak. And she
Yeah,
told me
yeah.
she's like, Ahmed, there was this one day where she's putting food for her kids. And then she would pretend that she needed to go do laundry. And then she would just sit in the bathroom, in the laundry, sorry, and just cry because she was just so unhappy with how her body
Oh my
was
god, I feel like I
responding.
would get upset
Yeah, no,
now.
and this is not something like I'm getting goosebumps because
Yeah.
this was about 2, 3 years ago and I still remember it, you know, clearly.
And do you know what's even, like, sadder about that is the person that's just sold the program off to her
They don't
would
give a
have
shit.
no idea.
No, and they don't care. They don't follow
No,
up. It's a numbers game,
correct.
and
And she would have gained weight because her body has then gone into survival mode, correct?
yeah.
And just been like, "Oh shit, what's going on internally? You've literally thrown everything out of whack.
Mhm.
I don't know when my next piece of food is."
Yeah. So then stress mechanisms have gone into overdrive. The nervous system is
Through the
firing on
roof.
all cylinders. It's kind of
Yeah.
like driving your car in the red line, right? And eventually the engine blows.
Yeah.
Hormones are all over the place because the neuroendocrine system is just exhausted. Her adrenal glands, which our adrenal glands sit just above the kidneys, are shot, right? Which release because just from the sheer amount of cortisol and adrenaline that they're releasing.
Mm.
And eventually the body just gives up. And that's what we
Yeah.
experience as chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, depression. These are all symptoms of the body just saying, or conditions of the body just saying, I've had enough. I can't keep going.
Yeah. And I feel like too, which I heard this from someone that I'm actually working with at the moment, to do with nervous system and stuff. But your body always gives you little warning signs first,
Always.
always. And a lot of the time as humans, we just go, "Oh, no big deal. Oh, it's
Yeah.
all good." And then it'll get to the point where your body's like literally screaming at you, going, "Help, help, help."
Yeah. My chiropractor once told me, he said, if you listen to the body's words, you won't have to hear it scream.
Yeah,
Right? We ignore the words. And,
correct.
and I'll give you the best example of this, right? When someone does a calorie deficit,
Mm,
okay, and they're starving and they're tired and they're miserable, that's their body saying, hey, we
I
are
need food.
we need energy, we need nutrients. But we suppress that voice because no, we have to stick to this goal of 800 calories, or sometimes even lower, right?
Mm,
So we ignore that instinct that the body's words trying to communicate to us. Eventually, because it's been months that we've just ignored it, the body just gives up, and that's what manifests in depression and suicidal tendencies, and like they get injured so quickly, hair falls out. These are all
yeah.
long-term symptoms of just the body going into preservation mode. The body's pretty much saying, well, fuck it, if you're not going to feed me, I got to prioritize the most important tissue in the body. So hair, do away with it.
Yeah.
Bones, they start to become more brittle because the body has to strip minerals from the bones to support the heart and the lungs and so on, vital organs that keep us alive. So that's why people that do a lot of strict calorie deficits, especially athletes, they get injured very quickly
Yep.
and for extended periods of time. And they're even, in some cases, especially in combat sports, they're more susceptible to damage from head knocks. So a normal jab might have an extra, pound or two of pressure than if they were in a, normal calorie balance.
There's so much to it, isn't it? And,
Is
like,
and yeah,
we
go on.
genuinely have, like, no idea.
I know.
And, like, the sad thing is as well that, you know, for a lot of people, they might go out and do like their cert 3 and 4, and there's one little topic on nutrition.
Yeah.
Like,
I teach it.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I've done the course, so I'm like, it's nothing. And then people will, once they're qualified and probably maybe get into the coaching side first and then add that on.
Yeah.
It's like you genuinely, like, you know nothing.
Absolutely not. Even I did a nutritional medicine degree. I've done short courses. I read books. I still will never sit there and say to myself as
I
like,
know
I
everything.
know everything, because
Yeah,
I bloody
correct.
don't.
No.
I know there's a heap
And it's
that I don't
forever
know.
evolving
Yeah.
as well. So I
Yeah.
think, like, that's the other thing. Like, you're always a student.
Exactly.
And
But these people profess to be the experts.
correct.
And one other thing that I've learned from teaching is to manage expectations.
Yeah, okay.
So what these influencers do is they promise the world,
Mm,
right? But like you said, they don't, whether the client gets their goal or not at any cost. Once that program's finished, the trainer has no idea about what the client's
yeah.
going through.
It's just so bad.
It is. And look, not all of them. There are so many that are awesome.
Definitely.
You know, there are so many that I've worked with that are just absolutely, they care so much about their clients and they just want the best for them, which is awesome. But there's
Which I think
so
too
many.
comes into like the fact that, are you getting into whatever career option it is, like, as to make money, or are you getting in it to genuinely help people
Yeah,
and try and have an impact and make a difference in the world? Which might sound crazy because there's, billions of people in the world, but it's
yeah.
like, if you're just doing it because you're like, oh, you know what, I know how to market myself well and I'm here to make money, well, you've got the wrong outlook on it all.
Don't get into any industry that revolves around caring for people.
Yeah, correct.
Because if you do not genuinely care, you're gonna do much more harm than good. Much more
100%.
harm than good. And I remember, at uni, one of my lecturers telling me, she said, genuinity cannot be faked.
No, it's so true.
You can't, and I'm sure you've come across people in the industry that will sell you that, oh, I care about you and I want you to do better. And you just feel, there's a
Yeah,
feeling that
yeah, you're
this
literally
person's
like,
something off about him.
you genuinely don't give a shit about me.
Yeah,
All
literally.
you care about is if I'm giving you money.
Yeah, 100%,
Yeah.
and that's, for me, I hate that.
Yeah.
I despise it so much. And I mean, I despise a great many things.
Oh, same.
I think
I
that
feel
that
like we're like
I know.
we think the same and hate all the same things. But just back to that client. So once she worked with you, and then like, what was the turnaround for her, for example? Like, so people have a bit of an
It took
idea as
about
well.
6 months, just before, like, a little bit less than 6 months.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just about nutrition.
No.
It was about how I communicated it to her.
Yeah,
People at the end of the day want to be heard.
for sure.
They want to be valued, right? And not just because it's a good marketing ploy, but that's how we all are.
Mm.
Like, if you want to be treated, so you should be treating people the way you want to be treated. So I gave her the care
That she needed.
that she needed. I
Yeah.
listened. I took on her complaints and what she was experiencing. I let her talk. I listened, and then I implemented the nutritional strategy, which, to be honest with you, wasn't very scientific.
Yeah.
Most of my practices are not very scientific. They're just things that agree with the human body,
Yeah, yeah.
right? So that's what we did. And then it was just reaffirming all of those habits, just working closely with her for 6 months. And then I remember touching base with her a few months later. And then she was pregnant and gave birth
Oh,
to,
wow.
another child. And I was like, wow. And then that's not to say that, oh, I did it all, but it's
No,
like,
no.
look where you came from.
Yeah, yeah.
You were like literally, like very miserable, just hating your life, to now loving food, loving your life. You've brought another beautiful baby into
Yeah,
this
and to be able
world.
to support that, like
Of
her body
course.
be able to support that. Like, she probably could never have thought in that moment, oh yeah, in like 7 or 8 months' time, I know I'm going to be having a kid.
Yeah. And we've all
Like,
we've all been there when we're
yeah,
at our lowest, right? You think that that's it, like, what's the point in continuing on with anything? Because it's
totally.
just, whatever I'm trying is just not working. I've had that in business. I'm sure you have,
Yeah, yeah,
and
hundreds
it's
of times.
it's so many times. So you can empathize with your clients, because it's like, it might not be the exact situation, but I can relate, because
Mm.
there've been moments. I mean, I can't tell you the amount of times I've wanted to just destroy my business and
That
just,
was actually going to be my next question, was how do you find business and like running it?
I love the human aspect.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I love getting to know my clients. I
Yeah.
love talking to them, even people within the industry. Like, even a lot of the students that I teach, they go on to be personal trainers and always in communication with them in class. And I love that aspect of it, the
Yeah.
human at talking and sharing ideas and, being able to,
Bouncing ideas,
bouncing
sharing
ideas, listening to a different
knowledge.
perspective, even though
Yeah.
I've probably got the more qualifications, doesn't mean I'm necessarily more right than they are.
Yeah.
So it's that I love with the business side of things and seeing people's lives improve. But the part that I absolutely loathe is the social media. I hate it so much.
Mm.
I don't know if you've noticed, but I barely post on my
Yeah.
page anymore because
I think that's something too that like people forget about when they start out. Like you go into it, whatever, again, like whatever career or choice you're deciding on. But you go into it because you are wanting to help people. And because you're like, for you, you're really passionate about nutrition and that side of things. So you're going into it because of that, and not because I also need to be a marketing manager.
yeah,
I also have to be an accountant. I also have to, be the nutritionist. And like you literally, when you're starting out a business, whether it's with the foundations of like four walls or just online, you've got multiple hats.
yeah,
And I feel like no one talks about that side of it, especially if you're at uni or even, at TAFE studying. No, no one's teaching you that, oh yeah, by the way, when you leave, you now need to be marketing yourself. You've
everything.
got to change the language that you use. You've got to
Yeah,
tell stories. Like don't forget accounting and make sure you're putting money aside for your tax and your BAS and all these things.
everything. Yeah,
And and I think it, like, even for Christian, I think originally, like, he got into this because he just loved what he did,
same.
not because he wanted to start a business. And so many people forget about that side of it, and
Yeah,
then they get to the point where the business probably becomes relatively successful and it's making some decent money, that they're then like, oh shit, hang on, I don't actually know how to run all
yeah.
the other arms. What am I doing?
Yeah, because it's when you've got very little activity in your business, it's easy to manage.
For
You don't
sure.
really think about the marketing or the accounting
Nah.
because it's like you're a small fry. But then as it grows and it's a full-time, it's more than a full-time role.
Yeah.
And I think because I fell into it, I remember, just a couple of years before COVID when social media was really booming and it was this whole, oh, be your own boss and work your own
Mm.
hours and
And
I'm
that
like,
was probably the tipping point. Like
yeah,
COVID was that tipping point, I think, where everyone was like, oh, wait a sec, I don't need overheads.
yeah,
I can still run my business. I can still do this. And so there were a lot of people that also were forced into shifting online,
yeah,
um, in that situation. But that, I think, was where it was like, oh, hang on a sec.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's a full on because yeah, you do. You've got all the freedom in the world to run your business how you
Yeah.
want, but freedom comes a great responsibility. Like you have to stay on top of like when
Everything.
you're an employee, you just turn up, you
Yeah.
perform your duties, and then you go home.
Literally.
You're not worrying about anything else. But as the operator of your business, you got to maintain clients,
Mm.
and it's hard because you've got, for example, like, because I work with programs, I'll have like 3 or 4 clients that are just about to finish and even though I'm getting ready to celebrate their success, in the back of my mind, I'm like, "Okay,
Wait, I've got to fill those spots, so then I've
exactly.
got more revenue,
Yeah,
so then I can pay my bills and
exactly.
eat food."
Yeah." And it was in the beginning, that messes with you because you don't prepare properly because you don't know what to expect.
Yeah,
You fall into a hole, and then you're just in this zone where it's like you just all you think about is just throwing in the towel,
yeah.
you
And you
know?
probably don't get, like, that really good moment to actually celebrate the wins with the client,
Yeah,
because you're just like, yeah, that's really great, like, I'm really happy for you, good on you. And in the back of your mind, subconsciously, you're like, all right, shit, now I've got to
yeah,
find like X amount of clients to then, yeah,
yeah,
which
and
takes away like that bit of, or not fully, but takes away a little bit of like that joy to
it
why you're
does.
doing your job.
Yeah, and one thing that I notice has tremendously helped in that regard is I listen to my wife. She was the one that got me into teaching because she's a
Yeah.
teacher. So because now money's not that big of a stress for me because
Mm.
I've got, I do teaching on the side, which is a passion of mine,
Yeah, yeah.
but I don't need to necessarily worry so much about money because my business generates money,
Yep.
but it's not the only source. So I don't have to have that stress in the back of my mind as anywhere near as much as what it was when it was just
Mm.
the business is all I had. So now when clients are
You can
success.
enjoy it
Yeah,
more.
you enjoy it more. Of course you
Yeah.
do. Yeah, because you don't have that added pressure. Even now, it's like with the social media thing. I don't feel that desperation to like, I have to constantly be keeping up to date with the trends and the reels and the
Yeah,
post. I
no.
don't care anymore because it's like I work with people that seek me out, which means that they are genuine in their
Yeah,
desire
the
to improve their health,
yep.
which is good. And my prices are to a level where, I don't need many clients and I don't want many clients. Like
Mm.
I think I average at about 3 to 5 clients a month,
Yeah,
which
okay.
is perfect for me.
Yeah.
It's enough for me to pay my bills, do my teaching. And the flip side of that is as well is that when you just take on too many clients, you burn yourself out.
Yeah, for sure.
And then you end up providing a poorer service because you're so exhausted. And being in our industry, because we care so much,
Mm.
you start to take on their burden. And then you start thinking, you're going to bed at night, but you're thinking, oh, but that client, they're struggling with this and why isn't it working and what's wrong with them? And I hope they're okay. And,
Yeah.
so having those two different jobs has definitely helped in that regard.
It's funny you say that because one of my good girlfriends, she is a nutritionist and also like she lives in Sydney, but did the same sort of thing. Started out like doing her own thing, like online and that kind of stuff, and then had to stop it for whatever reason. But now is doing a full-time job, and now is picking that back up on the side,
Yeah.
and she's found it's yeah the same thing, like so much better because there's less stress, less pressure
Yeah.
behind it all to sort of be hitting these targets to actually enjoy the why behind you doing your job.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if it's a passion of yours, the minute it becomes a full-time hobby, the
Yeah.
passion just dissipates. It's gone.
Which is interesting because people always talk about, or not a lot of people, but you hear people sort of say, like, oh, stop making it your side hustle and turn it into like your full-time job.
Mm.
But yeah, you saying that, like, that isn't the case for everyone.
Yeah.
Like, some people are happy to sort of have it as that smaller thing on the side.
Yeah.
But then, business mentors on social media and stuff,
See why I hate social media?
yeah, will promote it that like, oh, stop half dipping your toe in,
Yeah.
like go all in, quit your full-time job and throw everything at it. And there's nothing wrong with doing that for some people. And sometimes that does work for some people.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't like, I think people can see that and think, oh, I need to go quit the full-time job
Yeah.
because maybe that's why I'm not being successful. Maybe that's why I'm not getting the clients. And maybe that's why this
Yeah.
isn't
You're
happening.
always doubting yourself. And
Correct.
that's what I mean. Like, I'm gonna go on a rant here, but
Go for it.
that's why I hate social media because there's culprits of that in every industry on social
Oh, for
media.
sure.
You got the business mentors that, you do a little bit of investigating into their background and they're frauds. They're all frauds.
Yeah, I mean,
But they
there's
take
people out there that have never run a business but say, "Oh, I'm a business mentor."
yeah,
How? How are you a
they
business
charge,
mentor?
tens of thousands of dollars,
Literally.
and then you pay it up, and then you get a poor quality. Some are good, but most of them they're dodgy.
Mm.
Same thing with these health influencers. Like the amount of students that have come up to me after class, and they'll ask me, "Oh, have you heard of this guy or this girl?" And they're big on Instagram, and I just first time like I stay clear of that, steer clear of that. And they're like, yeah, because I used to follow their program and it worked for me for a little bit, but then I started becoming miserable. And then I started looking at them, and then people would report that they would claim to be following their own program, but then these trainers,
Oh
once
my
the camera
god.
goes down, they're pigging out on XYZ or they're injecting steroids, and it's
Yeah.
so
It's so funny because one of our clients, um, she came in one day and said to Christian and I, "Oh, I just went out and bought this booty band program," and I was like, "Why did you do that? Like, we could add extra stuff into your program." And she's like, "Oh yeah," and I said, "How much did you pay for that?" She's like, "I paid $80 because I want a booty like the person that was selling it." I'm not going to mention names. And I was like, "Crystal, first of all, you're never going to get that from a mini band because if you were, I would be retired off my latex mini bands.
yeah,
Secondly, she has a BBL."
most of them, if not
And
all of
she
them, do.
like, she died. She's like, "What do you mean she
Yeah,
does?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's why she's promoting the booty band
yeah,
program." And
but
that's the thing though,
yeah,
like people just genuinely buy into, "Oh, like this person like, looks really good, which genetics probably play quite a role in some of that.
They do.
And other parts is that, yeah, they've gone off and had surgery or gone and put all this, like, filler and whatever into their face and whatever. If that's what you wanna do, go for it. But you're not marketing yourself in the right way. You're literally a fraud and it's false advertisement.
Yeah, 100%. And you know what? For anyone that's new watching this, I grew up in the northern suburbs in Victoria,
Yeah.
right? Like the Broady, Craigieburn, Roxby Park areas. So I made friends with a lot of people that sold things that are performance enhancing.
Yes.
The
Yeah.
amount of clenbuterol that some of these people that I knew that they would sell to women, and these would be the same women that would go and promote their bodies on Instagram and saying my program is this and my program is this, and lo and behold, they're on clenbuterol. Now I don't know if you're familiar with clenbuterol,
Yeah, I
but it
know a bit
shreds you
about
like
it.
that
Yeah.
with a whole shopping list of
Other
side effects,
issues. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But it works from that perspective, and so many women were the biggest buyers of that product.
Yeah, which, like, when you think of it too, and I'm sure there's a lot of men that think this way and probably aren't as open about it, but so many females are insecure with their bodies.
Pause.
Like, it's like one of the things that I think females are always trying to be like, oh, I need to lean up. I need to do this. I've got to look this certain way because, like, that's the trend
Yeah.
and blah, blah, blah. So, and everyone wants a quick fix.
Yeah.
No
And
one wants to just be consistent,
no,
enjoy the process, eat clean, like, stop eating processed crap.
yeah. So
Just
there's two things with that, right? So it ties back into the whole calorie deficits. Now,
yeah.
the reason why that's so detrimental to females specifically, now, just to clarify, yes, you do have to be in a caloric deficit to
Yes,
lose weight.
for sure.
Obviously, it's how you go about it though. So when you just do those strict calorie deficits where they're eating 1,200 calories a day, which is extremely low,
Mm,
okay, you're going into preservation mode, the body. So women are about, I think, 5 to 10 times more likely to suffer from thyroid issues than men are, right?
yeah,
And
right.
estrogen also has a specific role with weight fluctuations.
Yeah.
Obviously, because as a woman's preparing for menstruation, estrogen levels go up and so on and so forth. So bloating and all that. So when women just deprive their bodies of energy and nutrients, the body is not going to prioritize reproductive hormones and thyroid function because it's not essential for you to live.
Yeah.
How many women get, have reproductive organs removed or their thyroid removed, right? So obviously it's not vital for immune survival. So your body will not prioritize that gland or those glands or organs because it doesn't need it to survive straight away.
Yeah.
So that's why
Okay.
women will reach a point where even though they're on 1,000 calories a day, they're not losing weight
Mm,
because their bodies just drop their metabolic rate to compensate, and that results in fatigue, a low desire to exercise because exercise causes your body to expend energy, and because the body's thinking it's under stress and
it's got no energy.
it's got no energy, it
Yeah.
needs to preserve it to keep you alive, and then the whole hormonal fluctuations,
Yeah.
so that's why it's more detrimental for females, and that's why I place a really big education emphasis in my programs on that because they're the biggest victims of all those fad diets.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, because like with a male's bodily system is a little bit more simplified
Well,
because
yeah, I feel
testosterone
like,
can mask so much.
and I feel like a lot of males that their main issue is like they can't bulk up.
Yeah.
Where for females, they're always like, I want to lean up.
Mm,
So we're almost like the opposites.
yeah.
And
But
yeah, your testosterone, like their testosterone would play a huge role in
of
that.
course, but then again, for guys, the same thing essentially happens in reverse. So when guys normally when they go to bulk up, they do what's called a dirty bulk,
Mm,
where they just eat
a
anything
thing.
that they see. And mostly that's going to be a lot of processed foods and a lot of refined carbohydrates, which leads to excess body fat accumulation. Now, too much body fat accumulation, especially in the visceral area, increases the conversion of testosterone into estrogen.
Yeah, okay.
So now they become, that's why a lot of men get man boobs,
Yeah,
right? Because of
right.
their slightly elevated estrogen. And that's why a lot of men that take steroids, for example, as well, can have mental breakdowns or they can have really bad mood swings because it's synthetic. So when
Mm,
it's synthetic, it doesn't operate the exact same as a natural hormone.
yeah.
So it's pretty much this, us men experience similar symptoms, but from a different perspective.
Yeah,
And then
right.
when that happens, we fall into a hole and then our body image just goes out the window and we just bludgeon
Yeah.
our system with bad foods and alcohol and drugs and everything else, because it's just a cascade of events. And that's what I try to educate people on, is that when you just look at it as 1 calorie in, 1 calorie out, you're thinking one step at a time.
Mm,
You got to look at it 10 steps down the track, right? Because if it's just about numbers, if it's just a numbers game, then you're just a machine, number one. But
yeah.
you got to look at, okay, if you just drop a calorie deficit, this leads to that, which leads to this, which leads to this. Okay, you might at this point experience a little bit of weight loss, but look at it, what else you've developed. Is it worth it? In most
Yeah, and
cases, it's not.
will it actually make you happy?
No,
So
definitely
that's
not.
the other thing too. I feel like people can put like I would say maybe like so much pressure because they think they need to like look certain ways and stuff. But it's like, okay, well, once you achieve that, are you actually still going to be, or like, will you be happy?
No.
No. You'll be like, all right, well, now what? Instead of just looking at like, okay, it's not a diet. I'm going to change it and make this my lifestyle and be like consistent with everything
Yeah.
and make sure that, I'm eating whole foods, I'm cutting out X amount of processed stuff. Because I feel like these days too, like if you walk around a supermarket, 95% of that supermarket is processed.
Rubbish.
Absolute shit.
Yeah.
Like, I've probably in the last 12 months, don't shop at a supermarket very often anymore now. And I'll go to a market every Sunday morning, get
Yeah.
all my like proteins, fruit, veg. And now, because I've got this awareness around it, and I can see that like I don't need all the other processed stuff. I don't need all the crappy things. And like, don't get me wrong, who doesn't enjoy something that's, like a chocolate or whatever every now and
Yeah.
then? But now if I don't make it to the market and I have to go do my food shop at a supermarket, I'm like angry walking around the supermarket
Oh, yeah.
because I know that the quality of the food there is shit. I'd hate to know what's in some of like their meats and stuff that they're putting in there. And then I'm walking up and down aisles and everything's processed with all these extra ingredients. And then that's why you feel like shit and that's why you feel sick and all these
And they're
other
also expensive.
yeah. And
Like,
then your food shop's like $300. And you're just like, "What?"
yeah, it's the whole system is designed against human health.
Yeah.
And the whole thing with happiness is that it's got to be earned.
Yeah,
You
correct.
can't just, like, we've got this image. Again, go back to social media. They promote this image that if you're not happy, you need to no, you got to earn your happiness. You don't have,
Mm.
it's not a right. You got to earn it.
And
It's not a
do you reckon
God-given
some of
thing.
it's too people just want that instant gratification? The
Yeah, and now
dopamine hit?
but there's a difference between dopamine hit or pleasure
Yeah,
and happiness. They're not the
correct.
same
Yeah,
thing.
true.
There's a really good book that I really recommend people read. It's called The Hacking of the American Mind. It's
Oh,
by a Dr. Robert Lustig, I think his name is, who's brilliant in The Chronologist. But he actually breaks down that there are actually different processes in the brain. So pleasure is a dopamine hit, whereas happiness is more often a serotonin hit,
yeah,
which is
okay.
why when we feel happy, it's not like I need it again and again and again and again. It's not addictive.
Mm,
Whereas pleasurable activities always lead to hedonic behaviors like gambling, sex, drugs, sugar. They're all dopamine hits and they light up the dopamine pathway in the brain.
yeah.
Another way he explains it is dopamine is about what I do and what I get.
Mhm.
Serotonin is more about what I give
Give.
and what I share.
Yeah, okay.
So if you want to
That's
be happy, give.
interesting. Yeah.
That's what I took from that book.
And
You
they
know,
also I've a book that I've read, they talk about that you will be happy if you're serving others,
yeah,
which it makes sense now
yeah,
because it's the same thing.
100%. And you know what? Again, going back to another book that I'm currently reading for the second time, which anyone that's got any interest in nutrition whatsoever should read it. It's called Nutrition and Physical Degeneration by Dr. Weston Price. This is like back in the 1920s or 30s.
Mm,
So what he was a dentist. So what he did was he was seeing, and this was during the rise of processed foods and sugar. He was seeing so many people come to his clinic with dental caries. So what he did was he wanted to find what's the cause. So he had a suspicion that it was the processed food, but he was Canadian, so he lived in a Western country. So he didn't really have a good sample size or a control group. So he went around to primitive tribes around the world because in the 20s and 30s there was still some left, and he compared the primitive diet and what they were eating and their health compared to the Western equivalent. So he went to, for example, Australia, and he looked at Indigenous Australians that lived primarily off the land
Mm.
versus Indigenous Australians that lived a modern lifestyle, processed foods,
Yeah, right.
compared to health, that in Africa, in America, in Alaska, Europe, and in every single case, those that stuck to a primitive diet, which consisted of quality fruits and vegetables,
Mm.
depending on where they lived in the world, certain grains, again, properly, you know, planted and looked after, and animal foods, whether it was land or sea. And all of those primitive tribes had far superior health than their modern equivalent. And on top of that, one of the biggest thing was the whole tribe worked for each other.
Yeah.
So, for example, one of the things they did was when the woman was ready to uh, you know, when they were married, the woman would have to do a certain ritual or a certain eating practice to make sure that she's fertile and healthy enough
Mm.
to provide offspring that's going to benefit the tribe, not benefit herself, benefit the tribe, to
Yeah,
keep the tribe going.
right.
So it's that whole thing of, we've known this for millennia, that we need to help others. That's how we be happy. That's how we live a good life. When we just think about ourselves, which sometimes you do need to do, but when
For
that
sure.
becomes an excess, that's when we get issues. And you look at social media, it's all about me, 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 me.
100%. It is.
It's all about those blue ticks, and nothing against Woody. I know he's got a blue tick, but it's all about how many followers. It's all
Well,
about the quantification
I
of
was just
everything.
about to say it's all about the likes and
Yeah,
how many followers I have and
yeah.
like
And that
and
feeds into our diet because we
yeah.
look at food as a quantity. We don't look at it as a quality.
And I think like now too, and I think this way because I'm sort of learning more about it. But like people wouldn't even realize that social media also now plays a role on their nervous system
Oh, yes.
because
Massive.
we're all seeking like and I will admit it, every single one of us, I would say, or most of the population is addicted to Instagram or
100%.
TikTok, like flat out. So people aren't they're wanting the instant gratification, they're wanting the likes, they're wanting the followers, but they're now also like addicted to the platform to get the validation, which now is stuffing up their
Yeah,
nervous system
yeah,
because you're staring at a blue light all the time.
yep,
You're like, and it's not healthy to sort of be on our phones or around constant blue light so much.
yep,
And I feel like a lot of people wouldn't even think of it that way.
yeah,
They'd just be like, oh yeah, I'm just checking my phone, all good.
yeah. But
So yeah, like it then plays a whole nother role internally, which then
100%.
comes back to like your overall health and potentially affecting the reasons why you might not be hitting these certain goals and body weight and
Yeah.
that type
Hu
of thing
It
too.
all ties in, and that's
Yeah.
why, again, I focus it's not just on diet, it's on lifestyle as well,
Mm.
you know, because, again, going back to the phones, one thing that we're forgetting about as well is that what it's taking us away from. How
I mean,
many kids these
connection.
days, and I do with TAFE, I run a program at schools, especially with young boys, and they're all gaming,
Yeah.
right? So they're not just on their phones, they're on games, they're recording everything. Like, I talk about the zombie apocalypse, it's already here because everyone's doing everything in front of a bloody camera, right? So,
Yeah.
but it's taking us away from things that made us human in the first place.
Yeah, and
Physical
as
exercise,
and
physical
humans
interaction,
crave connection. And
100%.
they've given us all these things that are essentially distractions.
Yeah,
Um, and they're taking that connection away from us. But then as humans, we're settling for I know what my friend's doing because I've watched her Instagram story all week.
yeah,
So I don't need to call her or catch up with her or him to check in and see how they're going because they look all good on Instagram. They
yeah,
look happy. But like that's just a small percentage of someone's like life.
yeah, and it's
It,
most often it's not a true reflection because
correct.
no one posts or puts up the bad side of your life,
Yeah,
or
and
the
like
not so fun and
and
glamorous.
if the people that might, someone will sit there in the background going, "Oh God, here they go
Yeah.
again." How negative is that person?
But that's why I try to stay away from it as much as possible. But
Yeah.
you're right. It's we live in a very artificial life.
Mm,
Almost everything we do is artificial.
yeah, which is so
Our
sad.
relationships, our food. I mean, look at the food.
Oh,
Out
it's
of all,
so
everything is
bad now.
artificial, and that includes that whole zero this and sugar free that. That's so bad for you.
Yeah.
Our physical activity now, it's all online. Like, not many people, like, so many people doing online programs. Like, get involved. I hate the fact that my
Mm,
business runs predominantly online, but I mean, again, I need to make a living as well. I
of
can't afford
course.
to have, the teaching plus that. But Our relationships are artificial.
Mm.
Our lights is like, who goes and spends a decent amount of time in the sunlight?
No, I know.
People forget how important. Like,
So important.
the
And
sun doesn't give you
again,
cancer. I'll,
no.
I'll just straight off the bat, it doesn't, right?
Well, did you just recently see the thing that came out on social media about melanomas? So ever since sunscreen came out, the increased rate has
Yeah,
just skyrocketed.
yeah,
And there are some sunscreen brands that actually have the chemical products in it that cause the cancer. And I feel like not a lot of people, or there's many people that are potentially open to hearing these
yeah,
things. They just think, oh God, here she goes again, conspiracy theorist. But it's like our skin absorbs the most stuff. So if we're constantly putting, whether, you know, it's makeup, it's sunscreen, it's this and that, that's just all soaking into our
yeah,
bodies, which then affects our internal health
100%.
yet again, which could be another reason why. And then, or not even another reason why, but then you've got heavy metals in your body, which then make you feel tired,
Yeah,
this, that. And like people aren't looking at it, as you said even earlier, like let's zoom out a second and stop
yeah,
focusing on the one little
100%.
things.
But so two things with sunscreen. Now, I'm not going to sit here and act like an expert on
No,
cancer and all that because I'm not,
I
right?
know the
But I
same.
know the human body,
Yeah.
and there's a general rule where if you can't eat it, don't put it on your skin, right?
Mm,
So would anyone sit there and eat sunscreen?
no.
Right. So don't put it on your skin, right? Because your skin's an organ, right? It absorbs things. So if it's essentially like you're eating it. So if you wouldn't put it in your mouth, well, don't put it on your skin.
Yeah.
That's number one. But number two, again, as well, is that look at what we're not getting by applying sunscreen. So sunscreen or sunblocks
It's a barrier.
blocks the amount of energy rays or light rays that we get from the sun. We don't just get UVB rays.
Mm. It's the same as sunglasses.
Exactly. The only time I encourage people to wear sunglasses is when they're driving
Mm.
because a safety hazard.
Yeah.
Outside of that, you should not be wearing sunglasses.
Yeah. So I've again just recently learnt like to, so these are some things that I've been changing in my daily like life. But as soon as like I'm getting up, I'm getting outside into natural light. Before I don't anymore watch sort of TV past like 8 o'clock,
Yeah,
if it even goes on. And I'll be going to do a walk at night now to watch the sunset because it's good for my circadian rhythm and
of
like
course.
getting those exposures. But it's the same thing with sunglasses. I used to wear sunnies all the time.
Yeah,
Now I've stopped, like,
good.
because I'm like, oh, wait a sec.
Yeah, the
Because
sun.
I'm being educated and I'm learning, and I've outsourced to work with someone that sort of specializes in these areas to help optimize my health. Because that's sort of like one of my goals over this year. Because like, I would say live quite a busy lifestyle across two jobs and running this place and now coaching
Yeah,
people myself. I'm sort of like, well, how do I optimize my health so that I can be the best version of me?
exactly.
And that doesn't just come down to food. It comes down to all the other little elements
Everything.
that are involved day to day.
Exactly. And that's what
Yeah.
we are. We're humans. You don't just look at the liver and be like, that's the representation of the human health,
Yeah.
of the human body. Just like diet isn't the only representation of human health. You've
Yeah.
got so many other variables that you need to look after as well.
Mm.
And the sun is, I mean, you go to around any
They pump so
country,
much fear
they do, of
around.
course, because, and again, we go
Yeah.
back to COVID. Why did they, I mean, it wasn't I don't believe it was a vaccine that started damaging people. I think it was the fear.
Mm,
Because you look at what fear does, fear is stress. It's the same thing.
yeah.
So especially here in Melbourne, because I was here at that
Oh,
time
yeah. It was cool.
for that, 2-year period, everyone was just on ultra cortisol releasing mode, so to speak.
Yeah.
And that's going to have side effects. It's not going to be like, oh, okay, cool, the fear's gone, we can go back to normal. Maybe in the initial burst, like exercise. Exercise is a sympathetic nervous system stimulant, so it gets that fight or flight response. Because it's only a short time, the body's able to then go into the rest and digest nervous system and repair and recover.
Mm,
But if we're constantly in fear, your body doesn't repair, or it does so very slowly because it's constantly thinking that there's a threat. So it's constant on alert mode. That's number one. But number two, as well, is that the prefrontal cortex in the brain, which is a region of the brain important, which is what makes us human. That's where we get executive functioning, decision making, long term planning. That's all from the frontal cortex. That pretty much shuts off when we're in fear because you don't need long term planning if a
no.
tiger's chasing you.
Yeah,
You
literally.
need the base of the brain, the reptilian brain, to fight or flight.
Yeah.
So I think what we're seeing now with all the bad health complications, I think it's just all the fear that was generated through that period, plus all the anxiety that's come from social media, because that induces
Yeah.
anxiety and depression.
Yeah, 100%.
All that, it has to have an opposite reaction, and we're starting to see that now. Now, people are gonna sit there and say, and I'm not a defender of the medical industry,
No.
far from it, right? But I'm not gonna sit there and say, "Oh, it's just because of the COVID jabs that everyone's now ill."
No, and it's never
It's
like
a
one
compilation of
thing.
it all.
Yeah, correct. Like it's never just one thing that makes everything go wrong. Like
Yeah,
it's multiple layers to it.
exactly.
And
Like,
then it's
look at the whole
yeah,
forest,
and
right?
then it's like the eruption of it all happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And those that are ill physically prepared or physically ill prepared are the ones that are gonna suffer the most.
Yeah, for
Because
sure.
muscle mass is the greatest indicator to health quality, your quality of life, really.
Yeah,
The
right.
more muscle you have, the
The
better
better.
quality of life you'll have.
Yeah,
Guaranteed.
there you go.
You go look at those, very rare 70-plus-year-olds that are physically active
Yeah,
and that
true.
work out, and go tell me what their mood is like. Because I
Yeah,
guarantee you now they're
they'll
gonna
be
be quite
happy.
happy.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? Whereas, look at my old folks that weren't very physically active, a bit overweight, they got high blood pressure and all that. They're not so happy,
Mm.
you know? So maybe it's just correlation, but it's a strong correlation,
Yeah, for sure.
And I look at myself when I'm after a workout or after a footy training session, which is my favorite,
Yeah.
I'm never in a bad mood.
Yeah.
Never. Like, I would have had an argument with my wife up until that point, gone and worked out or gone and kicked a footy around at training, come home, all good.
Good.
Like, we worked through it, but I'm not
Yeah, yeah.
angry.
Yeah. Well, because you're also releasing that energy, which helps you feel good, like, and you're also doing something for yourself in that moment, which
Of
sometimes
course.
what you need too to make you sort of feel
Yeah,
good. Yeah.
100%. And because at the end of the day, again, law of thermodynamics, right? Energy is not destroyed. It just changes shape
Yeah,
and goes
energy
somewhere
is
else.
energy.
Exactly.
Mm.
So look at it as, and I say this a lot when people sit there and say, "Oh, this kid's got ADHD and all." Look what we're doing to kids
Oh
and
my
adults
God.
right now. We are
Don't
just
even get
balls
me
of
down
energy.
the rabbit hole of ADHD.
Hey,
Don't even get me down
no,
the
no.
rabbit.
Look, again, I'm not,
No,
but
but I'm
this is
like,
my thought
yeah,
process
yeah,
on
for
the whole
sure.
concept, right? Is that, like, we've got these big balls or small balls in the case of kids of energy, and we're just giving them a sedentary lifestyle, and we're telling them sit and listen to a teacher for 6 hours of the day, go home, study for another 3 hours,
Yeah.
and we expect them to act accordingly, to act happily, to be, physically engaged. No,
Well, and
of
look
course
at
they're
how
going to
many
act out.
kids too then would just get home from school, sit, watch TV, watch TikTok, sit on their iPad.
Yeah, video games.
Yeah. Where like for me as a kid, like growing up, I didn't watch a lot of TV or play games. I mean, there weren't as many options out there, but like I was always out in the court. I had
Yeah,
after school sports. On weekends, I was competing for calisthenics competitions. Like I was always doing something active.
yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
And there's nothing wrong with being on your phone from time to
totally.
time, playing PlayStation
Yeah,
or
like I'm not
Xbox.
saying
I play
no
f
one do that.
I'm still a sucker for FIFA,
Yeah.
even at 35 years of age.
Yeah.
But it's not all that I do.
Correct.
And I make sure that I still play footy. I find it sometimes very complimentary, but also very insulting when I get younger opponents that are like 25 or 24 and they find out I'm 35 and like, "How are you still this active at 35?" And I'm like,
What do you mean?
"Thanks,
Yeah.
but I mean, at 35, you should still be extremely active. Like,
Yeah,
there's
like
no
you're not
reason."
100.
I know, but that's where we're at with
Yeah, like
our
35
health.
is not that old
No,
if people are living till they're like 100
but yeah.
or
So,
even 80.
but
Like,
again, we're just balls of energy, and we're not finding healthy channels to get that
get rid
energy
of
out,
it.
and
Yeah.
it's going to come out like we were saying before about the fear and how it's manifesting in bad health. That trapped energy has to come out somehow.
Mm.
And it comes out in bad behavior, in sickness, in illness, and all that. So that's why I was going back to muscle mass. If we're working out, if we're exercising, you're getting rid of some of that energy, or
Yeah.
you're making use of that energy, which is why a lot of people that are very disciplined in their sports usually are quite calm.
Yeah.
They're quite content. Not 100% of the time,
Yeah.
but usually they are because they've got that release, that physical release. Whereas people that just are sedentary, their life is just indoors, their work is indoors, they're usually the ones that are very easily ticked off or depressed or anxious or
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Interesting.
Ah, I know. I've got a lot. I
So
don't. Yeah.
we'll do like part 3, part
Yeah.
4, part 5.
Oh,
If
yes.
there's something like just to sort of wrap up,
Yeah.
something that you could give to the listeners that like really that they could go away with and sort of
Yeah.
even
There's a few things.
yeah.
Number one, don't take health advice from the government.
Yes.
That's number one.
Yeah.
Make sure your diet consists of plenty of animal foods. And I'm not saying meats, I'm saying animal foods. So that includes muscle meats, organ meats, eggs, butter, good quality. Quality is the key here,
Yeah.
right? Seasonal fruits and vegetables, and minimize your grains. From a dietary perspective, that's generally what I do with my clients.
Mm-hmm.
And then lastly, I would say is just get the fuck outside.
Yeah.
Get outside, whether it's in the beach, whether it's in going for a hike, even if it's just sitting outside in your backyard.
Yeah.
Just get outside, get exposure to the elements. That's how humanity evolved over thousands of years. All of a sudden now we're seeing all these health complications because we've deviated off that. So let's just try to go backwards to kind of go forward. So get
Mm-hmm.
outside, play in the mud, play in the dirt, and just don't take life too seriously. Like,
Yeah, and like how simple is all that, right? Like
simple.
literally what you just said, that's not hard to do.
No, it's not. The consistency in this day and age is the hard part.
Yeah,
But when you get a taste of how good your life is when it's simplified,
so much better.
it makes the consistency a bit easier to achieve.
Yeah, for
And look,
sure.
I'm no perfect angel. Like I
Oh,
have my
either am
moments.
I.
Like I love my burger, so like,
Yeah.
but I'll
And
make
there's
sure
nothing
that
wrong with that.
yeah, I'll make sure I've hit the gym or I've gone to play footy, spent time with my wife, been outside at the beach. Whatever. It's not just like I've been at work at a desk 9 hours
Mm.
and then I come home and it's like burgers and that's my life. So balance it out a bit more. It's just simplify it.
Yeah.
Simple is sexy, as I'm gonna start saying from now.
Yeah, you should make it your
It
slogan.
is, yeah. And that's with everything.
Yeah. Easy. Well, thank you. Thanks for
Thank
coming on
you.
again.
Pleasure.
And we'll have to get you back on for sure because I
Yeah.
feel like you have so much knowledge and like passion and know what like you're talking about that
Yeah.
a few
I do
episodes.
tend to ramble, so just
Nah,
it's
it's so
good.
fine. I feel like
Yeah.
the rambles are good.
Yeah. No, I love it. I love being here. Thanks for having me.
No
Really
problem.
appreciate it.